I'm going to call the meeting of the Board of Zoning Appeals to order, and I will first we need to establish a quorum. Oh, right. Mr. Shepherd just reminded me, the other thing I'd like to ask you to do is put your phones on silent. Whoa.
That includes you guys. Behavior.
Okay. Okay. We are not above this. Turn off your phone. Okay, now, we're going to establish a quorum, and I would ask each member to please state their name for the record that they are here, and I will begin with the person on my right.
Kurt Burkhart, and I am here.
Okay, Marcia Joseph, and I am here.
John Shepherd, I'm here in person.
Ronald Rosenberg, and I'm here.
Great. I also want to let you know that Mr. Bowling, the attorney who works for the Board of Zoning Appeals, is here. Andy Herrick, who is county attorney, is here. Francis McCullough is here. I wanted to call you McCullough. You're McCall. Francis McCall is here, and Marcia Alley is here. And we have another member of zoning. Can you tell us who you are? Thank you. Okay, now the other thing that we've got happening today that is a first for us is that we have a BZA member who agreed to join us on Zoom. He is on vacation with his family, so we are very grateful that he agreed to do this. And it's Mr. Carrington. And one of the things that we have to do is invite him on as a board. Okay. Do we have him?
We do.
Okay. So what I am asked to do is to ask Mr. Carrington to state his name, location, and grounds for remote participation for the record. Mr. Carrington?
My name is Edward Carrington. I'm down in Bay County, Florida, and I am requesting this accommodation for personal travel reasons.
Okay. Now we need to vote on this request.
Excuse
To
me.
allow.
Just a moment.
Yes.
We didn't get his transition from the beginning. So Mr. Carrington, if you could just give us a general idea of where you are remotely participating from.
Sure, sorry. My name is Edward Carrington. I'm in Bay County, Florida, and I'm traveling for personal reasons.
Thank you. We just needed that for the record.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Carrington. We need to vote. The board needs to vote on this, on Mr. Carrington's request to join us. Do I have a motion?
I have one. I'd move I move that we accept Mr. Carrington's participation in the Zoom meeting on August 1st, 2023.
Is there a second?
I second that.
Okay, so we have the motion and a second. And I'd ask Ms. Alley to please call for the vote.
Mr. Burkhart,
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd,
Aye.
Mr. Rosenberg,
Yes.
Ms. Joseph,
Aye. Okay, a motion to accept Mr. Carrington remotely has been approved unanimously, 4-1. Okay. Now it says Mr. Carrington should activate his audio. He should keep his microphone muted. Okay. And you'll need to raise your hand if you'd like to participate. So thank you, Mr. Carrington. Okay, we shall now go on to the public hearing, and the public hearing is for VA 2023-00001 Albemarle Lake Lot. And the owners are the Macker LLC, contact person is Greg Baldwin. Tax map parcel ID is 041A000000920, and our staff person is Francis McCall. Just want to let you know how this works. It works this way. Mr. McCall will present the staff report, and he has 15 minutes for that. And then the applicant has also 15 minutes for their presentation. At that point, after that, our half hour is done. I will open the hearing to the public. And at that point, anyone here who would like to speak on that will be able to speak. And the public has 3 minutes to speak, and you'll have little lights there that tell you green, go, and yellow, you got a minute, and red, stop. So that's what happens after that. I don't know. Do we have a list, Ms. Alley?
One moment.
All righty. Okay. So after that, after the public speaks, then there will be rebuttal time. The applicant gets 5 minutes, and then the county attorney or a member of the zoning department or a member of the zoning department gets another 5 minutes. And then we will be closed and we will be deliberating. So, okay. All right. So, Mr. McCall, could you please begin the process?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Francis McCall, Deputy Zoning Administrator. This is VA 2023-00001 Albemarle Lake Lot. The proposed variance application is to reduce the sideline setback requirement to allow a dwelling to be located on the property. This is attachment C of the staff report, which is packet page 18. Going to go through a quick summary. Here's a quick summary of what we'll be covering for this variance application. Talk about the vicinity and some site characteristics. The property is located in the northwestern portion of the county near the Lake Albemarle on Lakeside Drive in a zoned rural area. You can see it here in the overall location of Albemarle County. So for any structure, any primary structure in the rural area district that requires a setback of 25 feet from the side property lines. There are front and rear setbacks as well, but those are not in consideration here. You can see the site characteristics. The topography is fairly decent. There are no steep slopes. That's represented by the brown color here. And then the floodplain and the stream buffer that isn't around the lake. So the specific request that the applicant has made, the applicant is requesting a variance from the rural area setback requirements to reduce the side setback of 25 feet to 15 feet to allow the construction of a 30 by 50 foot dwelling. And unfortunately, this is a little difficult to see, but that rectangle right there on that is the representation of the 30 by 50 structure dwelling unit, which is the primary structure, would be the primary structure. These representations here, next couple here, this one is also in your packet, attachment C, packet page 19, just is a visualization of where that 25 feet is in relation to the property lines and that proposed dwelling that they're identifying. All the rest of the information on there is where their drain field location is proposed. Here's packet page 20, which is where the setbacks would be if the 15-foot setback were granted that variance for that to allow it to be 15 feet. So I'm going to go through the specifics here. They're outlined in the staff report as well of the specific regulations for granting a variance. So to grant a variance, it must be shown that the request meets all the criteria outlined in the definition of a variance as provided in Virginia code and the criteria outlined in the zoning ordinance. The criteria in the definition is broken down into 4 parts: strict application, and the need is not would not be shared generally. The variance is not contrary to the purpose of the ordinance. And then the 4th part is not changing the use with a rezoning or conditional zoning. The zoning ordinance sections, again, they're both, all of this is outlined in the staff report. Identify that, as you can see here, that there's this strict application. It's very similar wording as far as it being unreasonably restricting the utilization of the property. Then it breaks that down into or statements of the first part, or alleviating the hardship due to a physical condition, and then the 5 portions there. Section, 5 parts of that last part of the section 34.4. So here's a rendition of basically all of those criteria, and the criteria basically all have to be met for the variance to be granted. Staff has done their analysis and has made their identification in the staff report, and you can identify here that they're not all being met. So with that, the recommendation that staff will have on this is remembering that it has to be here to get a positive recommendation, but staff is making a recommendation of denial of this variance request as the property has not met the burden approved by the preponderance of evidence that the application meets either the standard for a variance or either criteria outlined in 34. I do have motions for you, and I can bring them up either here or as necessary for on another document if we do need to make any changes. And then, but these are possible motions, but those motions are left up to you all to decide. And I have questions if you'd like at any time. And then I know the particulars, any particulars of the rebuttal part, our county attorney will answer at that time. So.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. McCall at this time?
Anyone, Francis or Mr. McCall, could you just verify or clarify the exact distance of reduction that's being requested? I've heard 15
It's
feet
a
and
10-foot reduction of the 25 feet. So 25 is the requirement. They want to reduce it by 10 feet to get to a 15-foot setback.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you, Francis. Excuse me, Mr. McCall. Is the applicant, the appellant here, would you like to present? Come on up.
My name is Greg Baldwin. I've known most of y'all for quite a while.
Can you move closer to the mic?
Yes,
Yeah, there.
my name is Greg Baldwin. My client bought this property in good faith for use. And we've met, and according to the standards, we've met all the criteria except for the setback. Now we haven't, I think all of them according to the standards. according to the standards, have been met. We've shown that we can get a septic system on them, we can drill a well, we can build a house on it. If I had 10 feet on either side of the house, I wouldn't be here and we wouldn't be talking about this because it meets everything else as far as the property is concerned. I agree that the properties were approved back in the 30s and 40s before the zoning ordinance was passed. The problem I see is a couple. One is there are only a few small lots that can be utilized in the total of, I think it's 3,500, and Mr. McCall can correct me on that, in Albemarle Lake. This particular lot fronts on a state road. Most of them do not front on a state road. They're landlocked across the lake, and the county approved these for a subdivision there. I understand the concept because I've been at this a long time of joining lots, but then you're putting the burden on the individual to correct something that the county approved. I have a hard time with that. In this particular case, if this lot was smaller, there wouldn't be. But right now, as I see it, and I can be corrected on this, I could build a 10-foot wide house, 100-foot long, and I could build it on this lot today. I don't think that does much for the rest of the properties around it, nor do I think that that's a precedent that should be set. The request, I don't think is unreasonable. I'm not sure if this variance is turned down, if there is another avenue. I don't think so. And maybe you can correct me, Francis, on that. I'm not sure.
Not sure if I really should be responding to that at the moment, so
That's fine.
just.
The other thing I see is there in adjoining it with other parcels, you then put the burden on the other people. There are 4 lots that front on the county road. All of those, the county is taxing them as a building lot. This particular lot, the county has it appraised at $65,000. The one next to it at 52, the next one 54. So you're taxing us as though we can utilize this lot. Now, when we bought the lot, I've been at this, as I said, a long time, so I understood that it's a non-conforming lot, that all those lots and all of them across the lake. But I think that the county's going to continue. If I own the property and I was charged $65,000 for a lot that the county tells me I can build on, and I can't really build anything according to staff and so forth, there's a shed on it, then why am I paying, why is the county charging me my client $65,000 for the use of that property? The lots across the lake, there was never a road built to it, nor were there improvements. The county is appraising those at $3,500. That I understand. But to restrict us from the use of the ones that are on a state road, the other thing is the county continually talks about affordable housing. I would say to the county needs to consider a lot of the lots that are already approved and give them a way to take advantage of that. The house that would be proposed for this lot is 30 by 50, certainly not a large house. And the price of it would not be unusually high for the area. The other thing is that the neighbors who will speak after me have a question about whether it would impact their property. 10 feet on either side is not going to make a difference because there's 15 feet between them and the property line, and then 25 feet on their lot, which are larger, to build anything. So I don't think that it would impact those houses. That's my feeling. Thank you all for hearing.
Thank you. Okay, we will now open the public hearing. And Ms. Zale, would you please read the procedural rules for public comment?
Public comment is welcome during public hearings. A sign-up sheet is available for anyone who would like to comment on a scheduled public hearing. Please list your name on the appropriate sign-up sheet. Speakers are limited to one appearance of up to 3 minutes to comment on the scheduled public hearing. Speakers may not defer their allotted time or share unused time with other speakers. Timekeeping is conducted through a timer and light system at the podium. The green light will display when you begin speaking, which begins your allotted time. The yellow light indicates that you have 1 minute to close your comments. The red light indicates that your time has expired. Please end your comments at that time. In order to give all speakers equal treatment and courtesy, the board requests that speakers adhere to the following guidelines. When your name is announced, please come to the podium and speak clearly into the microphone. Please state your name, and for uncommon spellings, please spell your name for the record. Address comments directly to the board as a whole. Open public debate is not permitted. Any written statements and other supporting material may be given to the recording clerk. If you are representing a group or organization, you may prefer to have a spokesperson present your position to the board. You may ask your group to raise their hands in recognition of the group or organization. Do not speak from your seat or out of turn. All comments are recorded and published on the Albemarle County website. Thank you.
Okay. We do have one person who is on the list, and we will go ahead and we have opened the public hearing. And Mr. Kurtz, Stephen Kurtz, or Stefan? Stephen, okay.
Thank you all. This hasn't started yet. Not sure I've been under this pressure before with 3 minutes. Can I go? Okay. Thank you. I'm the neighbor mentioned. We're at 1956, which is 2 lots over. A couple of things I want to address from that presentation. The process for appealing your tax value, there's a process in place for that. And so if they think they're getting taxed more than they should, they can appeal. They can build on the lot. They haven't demonstrated that they can't build on the lot. They simply can't build the size house that they desire. I think that's clear in the county's statement. I'm also advocating for the neighboring lots, not just our lot, because it would move their variance down, right? So the lot next to them, it would affect them. It would affect them negatively. They would have something closer than what would be desired or what the rules dictate. And I would say lastly, if you approve this, there's really no reason you should not approve just about any variance that comes up. These meetings might get a lot longer because if you approve this because they don't have the size lot and that they want to build that size house on, why would that stop anybody else from doing the same thing? I see no reason why we would have these rules. If I buy a lot and I want to build something bigger on it, then the county variances allow. So for us, it's a simple matter of rules. If this gets approved and the person next to us wants to do the same thing, we're starting to get all scrunched in a very rural area. So to me, it's a question of fairness, legality. I don't think they've demonstrated that this is anything other than they want to build a bigger house on the size lot that they bought. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kurtz. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Okay, if not, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing and ask if the county attorney would like a 5-minute rebuttal.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board. Andy Herrick, I'm the Deputy County Attorney. I've asked Mr. McCall to call up slide 25 because I think it shows very well what the legal requirements are for a variance and the fact that in this case, not all of these requirements are met. Page 5 in your staff report, Mr. McCall goes over these standards in more detail. I'd offer just one quick correction, and that is that not all of the boxes in the left column need to be checked. In the middle of the page, you can see there's an or. So the applicant has the ability of meeting either the strict application of the terms of the ordinance would unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property, or granting the variance would alleviate a hardship. But in this case, it's immaterial because the applicant doesn't meet either one of those. And again, this is spelled out in more detail in Mr. McCall's staff report. I think Mr. Kurtz stole almost all of my thunder, though. He raised all the points that I was intending to raise on appeal, namely the fact that there's a separate process for tax assessment appeals. So to the extent that the owner believes that this has been overassessed, there's a separate process for having that corrected. Mr. Baldwin also mentioned the county policy for affordable housing. Again, that would be up to the Board of Supervisors to change the setbacks on these properties, or to rezone the property, or to allow some sort of affordable housing initiative in this area. Again, that's for the Board of Supervisors to determine rather than for this board to handle administratively. Again, we don't believe that the applicant has met the requirements of the law regarding variances. This isn't a regulatory taking. As Mr. McCall has pointed out, there can be properties, or it can be structures that can be built on this property. There is the ability to use this property, perhaps not what the applicant wanted. However, the applicant bought this property knowing that that the property was small, knowing that these setbacks existed. These were known constraints on the property at the time of its purchase. That would have been factored into the fair market value that the applicant paid for this property. A property that's smaller and with these setbacks, that would have been a known quantity, a known, again, constraint on this property that would have factored into the purchase price. So the applicant is seeking here to sort of raise the value of its property outside of the process of having it rezoned through the Board of Supervisors, whose decision it really should be. So again, because it doesn't meet the criteria that are shown on the slide and detailed more in Mr. McCall's staff report, we'd ask this board to deny the variance. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Herrick? At this point?
Thank you all.
Thank you. Mr. Baldwin, is there anything that you'd like to add as a rebuttal? You're okay? All right. At that point, we will go ahead and begin the deliberation. Mr. Shepherd, I'd like to start with you if you wouldn't mind. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, so I want to start by saying I appreciate the staff report. I thought it was very comprehensive and covered all the points very well. Thank you for that. I read this, just sort of tried to cut this up into small pieces and just go through each step of the state code requirements and the county code requirements. We'll just zoom by the 5 criteria that the county requires that staff say were all met. I have no quibble with that. I agree with that. And it has to do with acquired in good faith, no substantial detriment to adjacent property, all that. I really want to discuss those. For me, this comes down to 2 points, where I got really focused on 2 points. The first one is the idea that for us to approve this, we have to find this to be an unreasonable restriction. And I will tell you just right off the bat in reading this, I thought, well, it's a platted lot. Having a house on a platted lot seems reasonable. it seems okay. And then, it seems like there should, you should be allowed to build a house on a lot. As I say, that was a first reading. A closer, more careful reading of that for me was, and this might sound disingenuous from what I started by saying, but I think there is a reasonable use of the lot. I mean, in addition to agricultural uses, where a house in the world of tiny houses, it's a trend, it's a popular thing, to build a house 10 feet wide with a basement, with the first floor, with the second floor. That's minus the walls. It's a 1,500 square foot house. I know that's not what anybody wants, but to me, that is a reasonable, that is reasonable. It's perhaps far-fetched, but it's reasonable. So, which is to say, I don't think that they're under an unreasonable restriction. The other thing that I focus on is what's in, and I would also say, I think whether or not, reasonableness is a subjective determination. And I struggled with that with this one and came to the conclusion that I did. I think that section 6, having to do with non-conforming lots, is really to the point here. Just my understanding of what I'm reading there says that it's beyond a subjective opinion. It's just not available. And by that, I just want to read this into the record. This is the purpose of the code regarding non-conforming lots. Non-conforming uses, structures, and lots are declared to be incompatible with the zoning districts in which they are located, and therefore are authorized to continue only under the circumstances provided herein until they are discontinued, removed, changed, or action is taken to conform to the zoning regulations applicable to the district in which the use, structure, or lot is located. I think that to provide a variance for this would be contrary to that state code criteria, which to me is beyond subjective and is just a wall that says to deny it. When I make statements like that, and when I've spoken first, I want to say, I do sort of, often I'll come here with having thought things through. You all have seen, I have been known to change my mind after listening to more discussion, and I want to hear what other people have to say. But you asked me to go first, and that's what I'm thinking.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Mr. Rosenberg?
Thank you. This is an interesting case. And I'm torn. The applicant comes to this with good faith, but a lot of knowledge. And the knowledge is the knowledge of the existing regulatory scheme that this parcel is in. And so one side of me says, well, he knew what he was getting into, and he was taking a risk that he could get a variance. And that was the gamble that he made. The point about the high tax evaluation, and I concur with what I've heard Mr. Herrick and one other person say, that's a separate independent issue. Whether the county is overtaxing this or not is another independent matter. And if that was another risk, maybe he shouldn't have bought the lot. But so on one side, buying something with a risk built into it, that the risk is you're not going to get a variance or any other kind of regulatory permission. is you're going to Las Vegas when you do that. Because there's a chance you won't get it. There's a chance you will. That's the one side of me. The other side of me is I look at this land and what I don't know is we don't have a picture of what these lots have on them. Are they raw land? And you said the other person who spoke that they were 2 lots away. And I guess so one, Mr. McCall, maybe you can tell me if we had a picture of these lots or from the street, from the road, the state road, what would we see? Is it permissible to ask him a question like that?
Sure. I have also printed out something that shows the lots and the little houses.
Oh, does it on this?
Yep.
Okay. All right. But that's across the, I'm talking about the area,
Show him which
this
one.
area here. No, he can see that.
Just
I
a
see.
reminder for everyone to speak into their mics.
Yeah, can you just address the question of these lots in this area that this particular lot is in? What would we see?
Sure. Can we bring up GIS? That'll get you a little.
Wait, just a description would be fine.
I mean, it's a country road with, I think, 2 houses on that side. And then a little further back, there's another house. I have not gone all the way back into the, and beyond that, but I believe that's the 2 that, or maybe even, 2, yep.
Yes.
That
Yeah,
once you
that
make
one
the
is
turn,
Right.
you can go left or right to get to either side of the lake. And when you come down to the middle
Right,
and
but I'm
you-
concerned about this area where this lot is located.
right, and there are only 2 dwellings, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 lots.
10 lots and
10
two-
lots and
two of
then a
those.
larger tract beyond that, so you can say 11,
Okay,
but it's, yeah.
okay.
Can I add just one thing to that? For what it's worth, these lots are wooded.
Okay, they have trees.
They're
on them.
vacant. They're wooded, correct?
Okay,
So the house, there's a house here, there's a house here.
right, right.
Woods, the house, parts of what we're talking about. Lots to it.
Okay, okay. A part of me, so when I'm sympathetic to this proposal, and part of me is because, this is a useful lot and I understand the neighbors' concerns as well. They don't want too many houses in a rural setting and that makes sense too. But it gives me pause and I'm not going to say too much more. I looked at the zoning category this was in, and there are 34 uses listed in that category, residential use being one of those. And I guess this isn't a question for the applicant, but I've heard comments from Mr. McCall and maybe Mr. Herrick as well, that the alternative uses of agricultural uses were an alternative possibility. I think that was the only one of the 34 I heard mentioned, and accessories as well.
That's correct. I mean, I think I put that into the report as noting that agriculture, because the rural area is where our agriculture happens, and that is one of the main uses in the rural area, along with single family dwellings.
Yes, okay, okay. So, I'm trying to think of this from a different perspective, and Mr. Herrick alluded to this at the end of his comments. Of course, as a county attorney saying, of course, this isn't a regulatory taking. And I could understand that as long as there was an alternative use or some utility. And it sort of strikes me that this area is not developed for agricultural purposes from what I read, and maybe I'm wrong. So what exactly is the alternative here? My friend next to me thinks that we can build a 10-foot wide house with, and maybe so, but it looks like a sort of a strange, long, 100-foot area that is buildable. So I'm not exactly sure what the reasonable use is, and I'm sort of equivocating right now. And that's where I'm at. I'm sort of in the middle between this, and I see the compelling points that both sides are making. Guess I'd leave it there.
Thank you.
May I ask the applicant a couple of questions?
Of course.
Okay, sir, if you could step up, please. I'd like to ask you a couple questions. Just trying to get a better understanding of things here. So when you initially visited this parcel, this piece of land that you were thinking about buying, did you either research in advance or ask the seller prior to purchasing the property about any county zoning regulations on what the setbacks would be?
I'm aware of it. I've been at this for 50 years
Okay,
in the real estate business.
but you
And,
represent, yes, yes.
Yes.
But that's what I want to know is that,
represent
did the purchaser know this?
yes,
They did, okay. And so would this property serve as a primary residence or is it planned to be an investment property?
it would not. It's an investment.
Okay, well, thank you.
I'd like to add something to Mr. Rosenberg. Brought up the question about the use for this particular piece of property.
Mr. Baldwin, if you would speak into your mic or pull it a little
Yeah.
closer.
A little closer.
Oh, you can't. Okay, sorry. The use of the property is as a residential use. This is not an agricultural property. It's a wooded property. As it sits, you could do what Mr. Shepherd said. You can build a 10-foot house. Albemarle doesn't allow trailers, so you could put a trailer on it.
That's
but
not true. That's not true. But anyway, keep going.
Okay, so a 10-foot dwelling on that property, I don't disagree, and I'm very much aware that a 10-foot house could be built on this. We looked into the septic system to put a well and so forth, but that is the only use I see within the ordinance that would apply to any of these lots.
Okay. Mr. Rosenberg, has he answered your question?
I don't want to intrude on other people's time, but I had a couple of other questions. And if I may.
For
Yeah,
Mr. Alden?
yes.
Sure.
You asked for, and if I understand the numbers right, 10 feet and 10 feet on both sides.
Yes.
For a total of 20, plus the 10 or so that you have already. So to combine to make about 30 feet of
Correct.
width. Did you think of asking for less? 7.5 feet, 5 feet, rather than the full 10 and 10?
Sure, we looked into values of houses and so forth and what would accommodate the lot and keep values in that property, because there are other lots besides this particular lot. And I'm sure at some point you all will be listening to those people.
Right.
A 30 by 50-foot house is a fairly normal house. I mean, you're doing 3 bedrooms and 2 baths and so forth on a basement. This land lays very nice, which a lot of the lots do not, are very steep lots and so forth, but these do. Has the frontage, it has the septic, it has everything but those side setbacks. So that's the issue, as I see it. The other thing is that I would think that the neighbors would want to keep value in their properties. A 10-foot wide house on that property or any of the adjoining properties is going to devalue their house. So
That was my first question. I just have one more.
Okay,
The non-conforming use section of the local ordinance says a lot of things, but one of the things it alludes to is splitting a non-conforming parcel into pieces and attaching it to adjacent parcels next to them. Have you given any thought to doing that, to splitting your parcel and selling it to your 2 neighbors to make their lots even larger?
of course. And in looking at it from that, anytime you go into an investment, you look at the worst case scenario. The worst case scenario is you all turn it down. Then Our alternative is to build a 10-foot wide house on the property, which we can do. Or split it and sell to adjoining parcels. That option is still here.
Thank you. That's all I have. to
Thank you.
ask.
Thank you, Mr. Bolden.
Thank you.
He does. Is there anything else you'd like to say, Mr. Burkhardt? Okay. I'd like to ask Mr. Carrington if he would like to let us know what his thoughts are.
Thank you. Grateful for the chance to participate remotely, so thank you for accommodating everyone. Yeah, I mean, I agree with Mr. Shepherd that the staff report did a thorough job, and I'm grateful for the work that went into it. You know, I came to this meeting not feeling like the ordinance really gives us the ability to grant this variance based on the tests that we're asked to apply to it. So I don't think I've heard anything thus far that helps me think that there's a path to making this work. I don't think that I have a good handle on this subjective question of how wide a house we should allow, right? If it was an 8-foot buildable area, would we allow that? If it was 6 or 5 or 15 or 16 or 20, I don't think that there's much clarity there on my end. So I don't have anything more to add in terms of a concrete opinion yet. I'm happy to keep listening.
Thank you, Mr. Carrington. I have to say I'm agreeing with Mr. Carrington on this, is that I don't. I think if I wanted to build a house that was 30 feet wide, I wouldn't have bought this lot. It just, or I would have bought 2 lots. I would have put them together. So I think that I really think if we're looking at the piece of paper and we're looking at what the state code and the zoning ordinance allows us to do as a Board of Zoning Appeals, I don't think that I could vote to approve this variance request. At this point, is there any further discussion on this item? If not, I would ask if there's a motion. Francis, could you put up that slide with the motions on it, please?
Sure, just drag it, you want me to drag it over?
If it'll move over.
Okay, it's also on the same motion is on packet page 7.
Thank you. We have a motion.
Have a motion. I move to deny the variance application VA 2023-00001 Albemarle Lake Lot for the reasons stated in the staff report.
Is there a second? Is
I'll second.
there any further discussion? Okay, if not, could we please call the roll, Ms. Ellie?
Can you-
Mr. Burkhart,
Excuse me, can you explain what a yes and what a no represents?
Well,
So I believe that my motion is saying that I move to deny the variance. So a yes
Would be to
denies.
to deny the variance.
Denies
Okay.
the
and
variance.
a no would be,
Yes,
okay.
I appreciate that clarification. I'm the tricky thing.
I know. Thank you. Okay, I think Ms. Ellie, I think,
Mr. Burkhart,
Yes.
Mr. Shepherd,
Aye.
Mr. Rosenberg,
No,
Mr. Carrington,
Aye.
Ms. Joseph,
yes. Okay, with that, the request for a variance has been denied. The vote is 4-1. So thank you very much. And again, Mr. Baldwin, yes, this can be appealed. And Andy, shake your head up and down if I'm right, to the circuit court.
No.
Oh, sorry.
You have your counsel.
Mr. Bowling. This, when the Board of Zoning Appeals makes a decision that the applicant disagrees with, the applicant then can appeal this decision to circuit court.
Under the statute, he can appeal the decision to the circuit court if he meets the time limits that's set out in the statute.
Thank you very much. Sorry, Mr. Herrick. Okay. Okay, on that, we will move on to second item on the agenda. If I can find my agenda. Which is approval of the minutes. We have the minutes from June 6th and the minutes from July 11th. Now, Mr. Shepherd, you had some questions initially on the minutes from June 6th. Do you agree with what's been
Yes,
amended?
I asked for a mention of the discussion that touched on ministerial acts. That is added to the minutes, so I'm ready to make a motion to approve both sets.
Okay, are we just looking, we're looking at June 6th,
It's June sixth.
or do you want
Yes.
to do both?
Well, either other, but the June sixth minutes that I had a question about has been addressed.
Okay, great.
That's my main point.
That is great.
I do have a comment on page 4.
Which set are you looking at?
On the current one, June 6th minutes, I believe. Okay, yeah. And I'm sorry, I do not have my glasses. I can't see if there's numbers on the side, but if you take a look right here, somewhere in that area.
30 and 30, your thumb is on
Oh, sorry.
31.
Yeah, somewhere around 31. I remember specifically stating that I felt that the ordinance was imperfect, that it was archaic, and I believe I encouraged those who felt it felt like pursuing some sort of remedy with the Board of Supervisors, that they be involved to be part of the rewrite or have some input into the ordinance as it pertained to this.
Okay, so do you want to see that language that's placed in there?
I would
or-
like to see that because I did encourage folks, because I felt that the ordinance was imperfect, and that others that may have agreed had the option to get involved with the Board of Supervisors as the zoning was being rewritten and relooked at in certain areas.
Okay, would you like to amend your motion so that we bring at least the June 6th back for reread?
Well, is there a way we could approve the addition to it, or do we just want to wait for the month?
Could we
Like
do
something
something that's
Mr.
simple,
Hart.
that say, that would state that I acknowledge that the ordinance was imperfect, and encouraged those who felt compelled to be part of the process during the review and rewrite of an ordinance as it pertained to this?
Ms. Alley, what are you thinking?
That's completely your discretion. You can decide the statement you want inserted, or I can go back and listen to the tape and bring them back in
Would you
September.
mind going back just to put that in there? I think that
Certainly.
that's important.
No, I'm happy to do that.
Thank you.
If that's the case, is it something that you'd like to see again before you can approve this?
No,
Okay.
Nope.
Okay. So your motion is amended to include this information.
Yes. So you want to do this separately? No, I mean for July sixth and July 11th.
I think it's up to the rest of the board.
Just a reminder to speak into your microphones.
Talking to you. Just speaking
No,
to,
No, I'm just correcting. He said
Okay.
July 6th and July 11th. It was June.
does everyone feel comfortable approving both sets of minutes simultaneously? We good? Okay, all right, go ahead.
Right. I move that we approve the June sixth, 2023 and the July 7th, July 11th minutes as with the June 6th minutes amended as described by Mr. Burkhart.
Okay,
You're looking for a second?
Yes.
I second that.
okay. Is there any further discussion on the minutes? Okay. Ms. Alley, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Burkhart,
Yes.
Mr. Shepherd,
Aye.
Mr. Rosenberg,
Yes.
Mr. Carrington,
Aye.
Ms. Joseph.
Aye. Okay, we will move on to old business, and I will ask if county staff has done and found out any information on getting the circuit court to allow us to have alternates.
I am not aware that we have that information yet,
Okay,
Mr. Herrick.
Mr. Bowling and I have discussed that. Mr. Bowling, would you care to address that with the board?
Briefly, you can have up to 3 alternatives appointed. But the process actually starts with a request from the Board of Zoning Appeals that the Board of Supervisors make application to provide up to 3 alternative members of the Board of Zoning Appeals.
okay.
Have I got that right, Mr. Harrington?
Madam Chair, I think the important point for discussion purposes is that request would need to be made by the governing body of the Board of Supervisors rather than the Board of Zoning Appeals.
But the Board of Zoning Appeals needs to start the process by having a conversation with the Board of Supervisors.
The Board of Zoning Appeals can make that request to the Board of Supervisors. Anybody can make that request to the Board of Supervisors,
Okay.
but it would be the Board of Supervisors request.
Right.
Or request of the circuit court to appoint those alternates.
Okay,
So what you need to do, if you're so inclined, is to make a request to the Board of Supervisors that they consider the appointing of 3 alternative members to the Board of Zoning Appeals under the pertinent statute.
and the last time we met, we voted on whether or not we'd like to ask staff to pursue this.
Well, you voted and you asked staff to consider the matter.
Right. So,
Hey, and I think I heard that they hadn't had time to come to consideration yet about what they wanted to do. Is that correct?
As far as I know, yes, that is correct.
okay.
So
So,
you can have two choices. One, you can give staff some more time, or 2, you can bite the bullet and say, well, let's go directly to the horse's mouth and see what the Board of Supervisors wants to do.
But as Mr. Bowling and Mr. Herrick have stated, it really is up to you to make that request to the Board of Supervisors.
I think part of the question in my mind is there's a process question here. I'm wondering how you get in front of the board. Is there a staff report? Does it start at the planning commission? Would zoning staff help us do the staff report or not? I mean, just sort of, what's the process for this?
Well, that's good to understand. That's where your concerns are, questions, and I'll take this up with Mr. Svoboda and have that discussion with him, see if there's anything there that we can do, but yeah, and figure out how the board would want to hear this in front of them. So
The board's gonna have a staff. I didn't mean to interrupt you there. The board's gonna give us, the zoning administrative staff is gonna give a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors in any event, all right?
right,
So if you want to speed the process up, you can go ahead and make a request to ask the staff to deliver a request through you can write a letter if you want to the Board of Zoning Appeals, and you can sign it, Madam Chairman, if that's how the board wants to proceed. And then you can copy the zoning administrator, and that will, I guess, put the process in motion for the staff to prepare a report. And then the Board of Supervisors to consider the matter. If you want to put your 2 cents worth as to why you want to do this into your letter, you can do that too.
okay.
I have a question, I guess it's a process question. So we all received our appointments on this board through the circuit court. where in the Virginia code, and I don't know where it exists if it does it allow under code to have alternates appointed? And where does the circuit court come in on this in terms of, let's just say, giving their blessing or having the court judge approve these appointments, or even the fact that we can make appointments or have appointments made for alternates?
It's in the state code.
It is in the state
It
code.
is in the
Yeah,
state
the
code.
judge is going to make the appointment of alternatives, I believe. I'm just going off the top of my head from reading the statute in July, but that's the process. But the board makes the request to
The
the
request.
judge to make the appointments.
Okay, thank
The
you.
Board of Supervisors, that is.
Okay.
We're not going rogue here. It's.
I didn't
it's
think
in
we,
the code.
I was just asking for some clarity because I was a little confused myself, to be
No, I
honest.
know. No, the wonderful thing about it is that we have lost people in the past, and it has taken the circuit court a long time to replace the person. So if we had alternates, it would be so much easier. Then we'd have also succession. Is that when someone went off, there would be someone who actually had the knowledge that could step in and become a permanent member instead of an alternate. So I'm not sure why we haven't done this in the past, but I just think it would be a really good thing to have, especially because we're so small. And if only 3 people show up, which is a quorum, it becomes really kind of not good for the appellant, not good for staff, not good for the BZA. So, is this something that we'd like to pursue further? Do we want to wait and get some more information from staff? How would we like to proceed with this?
Madam Chairman, let me give you my comments. This might be perceived not in a positive way by the Board of Supervisors or the judge. Because it sort of suggests, you just said this was a small body that occasionally doesn't meet, that we don't have enough interest in the 5 people who've been appointed. And it sort of creates doubt in the kind of quality of the 5 people who are here and their seriousness. So I would wait to see what staff says first, and I wouldn't do what Mr. Bowling suggested and jump the gun on this, because I think there's secondary implications of this. And secondly, the judge takes forever, might wonder why you're doing this and wouldn't act quickly anyway. And then thirdly, the experiential benefit. So does that mean all of the alternates have to attend every meeting so that they see how this works? And if the answer is no to that, then what is the experience they have? They have no experience. They're just names on a sheet of paper. So I'd give serious thought to proceeding with this, and I would leave this up in the hands of staff for them to consider.
What are you going to have staff consider, whether or not we should do it or what the process is?
Well, the process issues are not that complicated, but the merits of the idea, kind of evaluate this from their perspective. What are the benefits of having this? Do they feel that this board is not making decisions in a timely fashion, or that we can't get a quorum, or that we can't get a majority vote? And maybe they'll be reluctant to be honest about that, but to get an outside opinion, this seems to, but as I said initially, I think this makes the board look very bad. And, and that I think is not a benefit.
I guess I just want to chime in and ask either staff or the county attorney's office, historically, what has been sort of let's just say in general attendance of this body. Have we ever, when was the last time someone was removed because of failure to attend or a record of lack of interest? I'd like to know that because these positions seem to carry some longevity with them.
Yes, sir. To my knowledge, the board has never failed to have a quorum. There have occasionally been absences, but I don't ever recall a meeting where we showed up to have the meeting and there wasn't a quorum available to hear it. So again, despite the occasional absences, we've always had a quorum. In addition, an applicant, if an applicant attends a meeting and sees that there's less than a full complement of board members, they can always ask for a deferral. There are also provisions in the state code that address tie votes. So there's a number of different alternatives that may be preferable to seeking the appointment of full-time alternates.
I guess where I'm going is, let's just say you have a member of the BZA in the past who might have had, let's just say a spotty attendance record. And we do have rules for what happens if absences occur and those people can be removed. Has that ever happened because we've had spotty attendance of previous BZA members? Or has it been just sort of one of the, going through a rough time where he's on vacation again, or, I don't know where he is, but he's a good guy. You do have those kinds of attitudes that prevail. And I think I agree that it might look not so good on this board if we're starting to say we need alternates because we've got questions about our attendance.
Yeah, to my knowledge, I'm not aware of anybody whose attendance has been so poor as to warrant removal. And furthermore, any removal that would be done would be up to the circuit court.
Right.
So this body can't
Right.
remove somebody that the circuit court has appointed. It'd be up to the circuit court if it so chose, even if that was an alternative, to remove a board member. And again, I in my time working with the board, I've not known of a board member whose attendance has been to a point where that's been an issue. And furthermore, as we see today, there's the ability to participate remotely, which hasn't always existed. So that's a benefit that exists to the current BZA that hasn't existed to prior BZAs.
However, if we did have an issue of attendance, we would bring that issue to the circuit court judge, correct? Is that the proper route?
Presumably, I've not
Okay.
I've not heard of that happening. So
The circuit court can remove for malfeasance and misfeasance and all kinds of feasances, but it doesn't say anything about attendance.
Okay.
And honestly, this isn't about attendance as much as it is having a full quorum. I mean, everybody's going to take some time off every once in a while. And this just, because I've been on this board for a long time, I've been in the county for a long time. Shepherd's been on the board for a long time, and the things that we've noticed is that it takes a long time it took 5 months by the time that I applied to court to the time that they placed me on the BZA. It was 5 months. So for 5 months, this board sat here with 4 people. And that's the way it happens a lot of times. So bringing this up was not to shame anybody or to say, people aren't showing up. I mean, the idea was, gosh, this would be great. And if people could serve as alternates, then they would get some experience and they would know what this is about. And there would be much less lead time for the court itself to go ahead and appoint this alternate. They know that they've already looked at this person and the person was acceptable. I don't necessarily think we need 3 people, but I just thought it would be something that may be able to work out for this group so that our dear friend Bo, who is on vacation, who shouldn't be looking at us now,
Wishes he
would
was.
be able to do with his kids. All 5 of them, and he would be able to do what he wanted to do with his kids at this point in time. So that's all I was thinking. Again, it had nothing to do with, it was just attendance in such. It just sort of got my mind working. I started looking at the code. I started looking to see if there was something that we could do. So that's all that this is about, is just, and I love the succession thing, so that maybe it won't take so long for the court to process someone. So anyways, that was just
I
it.
like your rationale, though.
And I realize that sometimes the court appointment process takes time. But I would point out that even while we've been waiting for new members to be appointed by the court, again, this board has never lacked for a quorum. It's lacked for a full
Right.
board, but it's never
Right.
lacked for a quorum.
Right. Well, and the other thing was when we have a 2-2, it's just sort of, that means that nothing really happens. I mean, it's
Well, excuse me, Madam Chairman, nothing, that's not really accurate. What it means is that the board chose not to reverse the administrative interpretation. And it's not that the board didn't do anything. And let me say one other thing. There are many boards that have quorums, and as long as they meet the quorum, their action is legal and legitimate.
Of course it is.
And-
Of course it is.
And as I said, I
Go
think
ahead,
that there are
Chairman.
secondary implications of doing this, because I think I think the Board of Supervisors would probably look at this in a sort of a negative way, not a positive one.
We don't know what they'll think, but go ahead.
But I'd like to sort of get back to step back a couple of notches here and be able to sort of see a proposal in front of us with pros and cons and be able to decide it with to think about it. And then by vote, decide whether or not we want as a board
Proceed.
to request, to
Sure.
proceed. And then at that point, we would
Sure.
also have a clearer idea about what the process would be. I mean, who creates the rationale? Is that something we're asking staff to create the rationale for? Is it the board? We would create just all of that, just to get that
Okay.
into an organized proposal that could be considered and then voted up or down and proceed or drop it. So I think one of the next steps will be that Mr. McCall, you were saying that I think the question is in front of the staff. It's at least in the back of people's minds. And perhaps if there's time at the next meeting, or just soon, hopefully the next meeting, have a lot on the agenda, but if there's time to have a discussion again, but when it's more of the process is laid out to know, that would be good.
Thank you.
What I would suggest is, we've recently implemented meeting both with the chair, vice chair. I don't know if you wind up putting something together and want to bring that to us to talk about at that time, with however much consensus you get from the board after you might have passed around as far as what you want to say. And we can take a look at that and then have Bart take a look at it obviously as well, and see what with that discussion, with the regular discussion that we have about the items that are coming up in a particular meeting.
Sounds good. Mr. Carrington, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm happy to continue this conversation in that venue, and I certainly think there are some merits, but happy to weigh those against any potential negative implications as well.
Thank you. Okay. We are through with is there any other old business? Okay, so any new business?
There is a couple things. For the meeting next month, there are 2 variances that have been applied for. So the September
Well,
to the meeting, is it 12th?
12.
September 12th meeting, there will be 2 variance applications. The second thing that I've been asked to bring up, which after hearing your just conversation about alternates, there might be discussion about this. I don't know. Mr. Herrick may be able to allude to this because I think he helps with this particular certification, but the 45th Certified Board of Zoning Appeals program is happening at the end of August. There is August 29th and 30th are 2 in-person sessions. Then you spend a couple months doing home study. And then you have a closing session on October 27th to go over everything that you've learned. I did this many, many years ago, but it is put on by VCU through the L. Douglas Wilder School of Government and Public Affairs, Center for Urban and Regional Analysis. Miss Ally can send you the information if you so desire to do that. It's highly recommended that you go through that. And like I said, you might find out others that are on other BZAs that maybe have alternates and how they're doing things. That might be a thing to figure out there or ask about. But it is something that's highly recommended and is coming up. And I think if we can't make it to that one, Miss Ally said that there was potentially an online one that they were recommending at some point.
Previously, they've held a spring virtual training opportunity. And we are hoping that that's going to continue for the next year. Normally, there's a fall.
And
seminar.
there is a registration cost because you get books and everything like that. And my understanding is that zoning will be able to find those dollars to basically take care of that if you all choose to partake in that training. And those details can again be worked out with Miss Ally on the any registrations and any fees and things like that. So.
Ms. Alley, would you please send this to Mr. Carrington by email?
Yes, I will.
So those are my two new business items, the new variances and the upcoming certified Board of Zoning Appeals program.
Okay, well, thank you for that information.
I have one question. When will we get the packets on those two cases? Or when is it reasonable to expect them?
We do, where is my mouse now? There it is. Just looking at the dates here. Let's see. 12th. We do usually about a week before.
Yeah.
We had some, if you notice, we had some printing errors. Marcia had to go through a couple of these and write some numbers, sorry, the attachment letters on these, but the attachments were on there. They were identified. It's just when they wound up being printed, it cut off. So that's just some formatting things with some of the documents. and
About a
stuff.
week in advance.
I think so. I believe that's what we try to do. Is that your all's
Let me just say,
experience as
just
far?
Casually speaking, I think we got a preliminary package maybe 2 weeks before.
Yeah, and that's just usually the applicant's information that they've submitted.
And and people have varying reactions to that, but I think basically approximately Friday, 9 days before the meeting, it'll be available online. It'll be emailed out, and Monday it'll be delivered to your house. So there's a good solid week to prepare. And the preliminary packet does at least get you on the page and sort of if it's gonna, appeal or variance and generally what's going on, you'll be in the right section of the ordinance to start thinking about it.
If I could add, the Daily Progress has recently changed their submittal deadlines for legal ads, and that has thrown us off by 4 days. That's thrown us off by 4 days for legal ads, but it has also affected our internal deadlines, which we are still working on getting those to where we're getting things in time to get them to you in time. Currently, based on what we're trying this month, is the week of August 28th is what we're shooting to get packets out, completed. And normally they're posted online as soon as I have them, and they may be available online before you get them in hand. With that being said, I can't make any guarantees. Like I said, we're still working on our internal deadlines, but that's what we're shooting for. Also, if you will just give me just a moment, I'm going to look at something because we're now having a question about whether it is the 12th or the 5th, but give me just a second.
That would be good.
Maybe you're all right.
Or the first.
That's their deadline.
For the meeting.
I think I'm still solidly on the hook.
Sorry, the 5th would be that first one, but the second is.
Is it a Labor Day thing?
So it is accurate, September 12th. That was the adopted meeting date
September
schedule,
12th,
September 12th. Thank you.
self-inflicted. So, okay, September 12th. Okay. Is there any other new business, any other topics that people would like to discuss?
Prince, is there any news that you could share with us about anything else in the works?
Oh, yes, that's right. It was asked, Marcia had mentioned that, to mention that that last appeal, those, the two adjacent property owners have, filed their appeal to the circuit court, so, and it's in the process. However, I don't know all the details. I leave but it's been filed. So those adjacent properties have appealed that tied decision, basically.
This was the gun.
Correct.
Okay. Anything
Thank you.
else, Mr. McCall?
No.
Good.
Thank you both for participating remotely. You have paved the way for me. I will just announce to everybody. I thought I knew what the schedule was, first Tuesday of every month. Now I know for September, that's incorrect. I will be going on for the September meeting. I look forward to dialing in from a distant time zone, but I'll be ready.
Excellent. Thank you. Any other further discussion here? If not, are we ready to adjourn? Do we have a motion?
I make a motion that the meeting of the Board of Zoning Appeals on today, August 1st, 2023, be adjourned.
I second that.
All right. Miss Ally, could you go ahead and read the
Mr.
roll?
Burkhart,
Yes.
Mr. Shepherd.
Aye.
Mr. Rosenberg,
Yes.
Mr. Carrington,
Yes.
Ms. Joseph.
Yes. Okay, we are officially adjourned at 3:26.
Thank you, everyone.